Good morning. How are you? So I just thought I'd pop online to tell you what's happening at the yard today. Usually we have our ESOL classes. We run those in partnership with Everyday English. But today they're not happening because we have our teacher who's busy doing other things, preparing for examinations. And also, normally on a Tuesday, you'd find Jasmine in the yard for breakfast buddies. However, again, today she's not there. She's working from home. But you will see her online because just because the doors are closed doesn't mean that we're not open. But you'll be pleased to know at 4 o'clock till 6 o'clock, we've got our homework club, which is our everyday education project. We've got our crafting club and our general let's catch up with each other at the yard. So you can join myself and Tashan at the yard between about 3:30 and 6. As I explained yesterday, we're all about story time at the moment. We've always been about the stories, haven't we? But I thought it'd be really lovely to share another story, one of my kind of childhood favourites. It's from this book, which I've probably had since I was a child. And I thought we would read Hansel and Gretel. So let's get started. Once upon a time, there dwelt near a large wood a poor woodcutter with his wife and 2 children by his former marriage. A little boy called Hansel and a little girl called Gretel. He had little enough to break or bite, and once, when there was a great famine in the land, he could not even procure even his daily bread. And as he lay thinking in his bed one evening, rolling about for trouble, he sighed and said to his wife, "What will become of us? How can we feed our children when we have no more than we can eat ourselves?" "No, then, my husband," answered she, "we will lead them away quite early in the morning into the thickest part of the wood. There, make a fire and give them each a little piece of bread, and then we will go to our work and leave them alone so they will not find their way home again. And we shall be free from them." "No, wife," he replied, "that I can never do. How can you bring your heart to leave my children all alone in the wood? For the wild beasts will soon come and tear them to pieces." "Oh, you simpleton," she said. "Then we must all 4 die of hunger. You had better play in the coffins for us." But she left him no peace till he consented, saying, "Ah, but I shall regret the poor children." The 2 children, however, had not gone to sleep for very hunger, and so they overheard what the stepmother had said to their father. Gretel wept bitterly and said to Hansel, "What will become of us?" "Be quiet, Gretel," he said. "Do not cry. I will soon help you." And as soon as their parents had fallen asleep, he got up, put on his coat, and unbarring the back door, slipped out. The moon shone brightly, and the white pebbles which lay beyond the door seemed like silver pieces. They glittered so brightly. Hansel stooped down and put as many into his pocket as it could hold. And then, going back, he said to Gretel, "Be comforted, dear sister, and sleep in peace. God will not forsake us." And so saying, he went to bed again. The next morning, before the sun rose, the wife went and awoke the 2 children. "Get up, you lazy things. We are going into the forest to chop wood." Then she gave them a piece of bread, saying, "This is for your dinner. Don't eat it before that time, because you're going to get nothing else." Gretel took her bread in her apron, for Hansel's pockets were full of pebbles, and so they set out upon their way. And when they had gone a little distance, Hansel stood still and peeped back at the house, and he repeated this several times, till his father said, "Hansel, what are you peeping at? And why do you lag behind? Take care and remember your legs." "Ah, father," said Hansel, "I'm just looking at my white cat sitting upon the roof of the house and trying to say goodbye." "Oh, you simpleton," said the wife, "that is not a cat. It is only the sun shining on the white chimney." But in reality, Hansel was not looking at the cat, but every time he stopped, he dropped the pebble out of his pocket upon the path. When they came to the middle of the wood, the father told the children to collect wood, and he would make them a fire so they should not be cold. Hansel and Gretel gathered together quite a little mountain of twigs. Then they set fire to them, and as the flame went high, the wife said, "Now, you children, lie down near the fire and rest yourselves, while we go into the forest and chop wood. When we are ready, we will call you." Hansel and Gretel sat down by the fire, and when it was noon, each ate a piece of bread. Being then, because they could hear the blows of the axe, they thought their father was near, but it was not an axe, but it was a branch which had been bound to a withered tree, so to be blown to and from by the wind. They waited so long, but at last their eyes closed from weariness, and they fell fast asleep. When they awoke, it was quite dark, and Grethel began to cry. "How shall we get out of the wood?" But Hansel tried to comfort her by saying, "Wait a little till the moon rises, and then we will quickly find the way." The moon shone forth, and Hansel, taking his sister's hand, followed the pebbles which glittered like little coin silver pieces, and it showed them the path. All night long they walked on, and as the day broke they came to their father's house. They knocked at the door, and when the wife opened it and saw Hansel and Gretel, she exclaimed, "Oh, you wicked children! Why did you sleep so long in the wood? We thought you were never coming home again." Oh, but their father was very glad, for he had grieved his heart to leave them at all alone. Not long afterwards, there was a great scarcity in every corner of the land, and one night the children overheard their mother say to their father, "Everything is again consumed. We only have half a loaf left." And then the song is ended. The children must be sent away. We will take them deeper into the wood, so they may not find their way out again. It is the only means of escape for us. But her father felt heavy at heart, and thought it were better to share the last crust with his children. His wife, however, would not listen to anything he said, and scolded and reproached him without end. He who says A must say B too, and he who consents the first time must also the second. The children, however, had heard the conversations as they lay awake, and as soon as the people went to bed, Hansel got up, intended to pick some more pebbles, but the wife had locked the door, and he couldn't get out. Nevertheless, he comforted Grethel and said, "Do not cry. Sleep in quiet. The good God will not forsake us." Early in the morning, the stepmother came and pulled them out of bed and gave them both a slice of bread, which was still smaller than the former piece. On the way, Hansel broke his in his pocket, and stopping every now and then he dropped a crumb out the path. "Hansel, why do you stop and look about?" said father, "keeping the path." "I'm looking at my little dove," answered Hansel, nodding a goodbye to me. "Oh, you simpleton," said the wife. "That is no dove, but the sun shining on the chimney." But Hansel kept dropping crumbs as we went along. The mother led the children deep into the wood, where they had never been before, and there, making an immense fire, she said to them, "Sit here and rest, and when you feel tired, you can sleep for a while. We're going to the wood to fetch. We're going into the forest even to feel wood, and in the evening, when we are ready, we will come and fetch you." When noon came, Grethel shared her bread with Hansel, who had strewn his on the path. They went to sleep, but the evening arrived, and no one came to visit the poor children. And in the dark night they awoke, and Hansel comforted his sister by saying, "Only wait, Grethel, till the moon comes out, then we shall see the crumbs of bread which I have dropped, and they will show us the way home." The moon shone, and they got up, but they could not see the crumbs, for the thousands of birds that had been flying about in the woods and the fields had picked them up. Hansel kept saying to Gretel, "We will soon find the way," but they did not, and they walked the whole night and the next day, but they still did not come out of the woods, and they got so hungry. They had nothing to eat but the berries, which they found upon the bushes. Soon they got so tired that they could not drag themselves along, so they lay under a tree and went to sleep. It was now the third morning since they had left their father's house, and they still walked on, but only got deeper and deeper into the wood, and Hansel saw that if help did not come soon, they would die of hunger. As soon as noon, they saw a beautiful snow-white bird sitting on a bough, which sang so sweetly that it stood still and listened to it. It soon left off, and spreading its wings flew off, and they followed it until it arrived at a cottage, upon the roof of which it perched, and when they went close up to it, they saw that the cottage was made of bread and cakes, and the window panes were of clear sugar. "We will go in there," said Hansel, "and have a glorious feast. I will eat a piece of the roof, and you can eat the window. Will they not be sweet?" So Hansel reached up and broke a piece of the roof in order to see how it tasted, and Grethel stepped up to the window and began to bite it. Then a sweet voice called out in the room, tip tap, who raps at the door?" And the children answered, the wind, the children of the heaven." And they went on eating without interruption. Hansel thought the roof tasted very nice, and he tore off a great piece, while Grethel broke a large round pane of the window, and sat down quite contentedly. Just then the door opened and a very old woman walking up on crutches came out. Hansel and Gretel were very frightened, but they let fall what they had in their hands. But the old woman nodded her head and said, "Ah, dear children, what has brought you here? Come in and stop with me, and no harm shall befall you." And so saying, she took them both by the hand and led them into the cottage. A good meal of milk and pancakes with sugar and apples was spread on the table, and in the back room were two nice little beds, covered with white, where Hansel and Gretel laid themselves down and thought to themselves, "Oh, we're in heaven." The old lady behaved very kindly to them, but in reality she was a wicked witch who waylaid children and built the bread house in order to entice them in. But as soon as they were in her power, she killed them, cooked and ate them, and made a great festival of the day. Witches have red eyes, and they cannot see very far, but they have a fine sense of smelling like wild beasts, so they know when children approach them. When Hansel and Gretel came near the witch's house, she laughed wickedly and said, "Here come two who shall not escape me." And early in the evening, she kept repeating the saying. The next morning, before they awoke, she went up to them and saw how lovingly they lay sleeping. With her chubby red cheeks, she mumbled to herself, "That will be a good bite." Then she took up Hansel with her rough hand and shut him in a little cage with a lattice door, and although he screamed loudly, it was of no use. Gretel came next and shaken her till she awoke. "Get up, you lazy thing, and fetch some water to cook something good for your brother, who must remain in that stall and get fat. And when he is fat enough, I shall eat him." Gretel began to cry, but it was useless, for the old witch made her do as she wished. So a nice meal was cooked for Hansel, but Gretel got nothing else but a crab's claw. Every morning the old witch came to the cage and said, "Hansel, stretch out your finger so I may feel whether you are getting fat." But Hansel used to stretch out a bone, and the old woman, having such very bad sight, thought it was his finger, and wondered very much that he did not get fat more. When 4 weeks had passed and Hansel was still quite lean, she lost patience and would not wait any longer. "Gretel," she called out in a passion, "get some water quickly. Be Hansel fat or lean, this morning I will kill and cook him." Oh, how the poor little sister grieved, as she was forced to fetch the water, and fast the tears ran down her cheeks. "Dear good God, help us now," she exclaimed. "Had we only eaten by the wild beasts in the wood, then we should have died together." But the old witch called out, "Oh, leave off that noise, it will not help you a bit." So early in the morning, Gretel was forced to go out and fill the kettle and make a fire. "First we will bake. However," said the old woman, "I have already heated the oven and kneaded the dough." And so saying, she pushed poor Gretel up to the oven, out of which the flames were burning fiercely. "Creep in," said the witch, "and see if it is hot enough, and then we will put in the bread." But she intended, when Gretel got in, to shut up the oven and bake her, so she might eat her as well as Hansel. Gretel perceived her thoughts and said, "I don't know how to do it. How shall I get in?" "Oh, you stupid goose," she said. "The opening is big enough. See, I could even get in myself." And she got up and put her head into the oven. Then Gretel gave her a big push and she fell right in, and shutting the iron door, she bolted it. Oh, how horribly she howled. But Gretel ran away and left the ungodly witch to burn to ashes. Now she ran to Hansel and, opening his door, called out, "Hansel, we are saved. The old witch is dead." So he sprang out like a bird of his cage when the door was opened. And they were so glad that they fell upon each other's neck and kissed each other over and over again, as now there was nothing to fear. They went back into the witch's house, where in every corner were caskets of pearls and precious stones. "These are better than pebbles," said Hansel, putting as many into his pocket as it would hold, while Gretel thought, "I will take some home too," and filled her apron full. "We must be off now," said Hansel, "and get out of this enchanted forest." But when they had walked for 2 hours, they came to a piece of water. "We cannot get over," said Hansel. "I can see no bridge at all, and there is no boat," said Gretel. "But there swims a white duck. I will ask her to help." And she sang, "Little duck, good little duck, Gretel and Hansel, here we stand. There is neither stile nor bridge. Take us back to land." So the duck came to them, and Hansel sat on and bade his sister behind him. "No," answered Gretel, "that would be too much for the duck. She will take us over one at a time." This the good little bird did, and they were both happily arrived at the other side, and had gone a little way when they came to a well-known wood, which they had known the better every step they went into it. And at last they perceived their father's house. They began to run and burst into the house. They fell upon their father's neck. He had not had one happy hour since he left the children in the forest, and his wife was dead. Gretel shook her apron, and the pearls and the precious stones fell upon the floor. Hansel threw down one handful and then the other out of his pocket. Then all of their sorrows were ended, and they lived together in great happiness. My tale is done. There runs a mouse. Whoever catches her may make a great, great cap out of her fur. And that is today's story from the Brothers Grimm. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget that on a Monday evening, you can catch Beth read Six of Crows, and shortly you'll be able to join Rachel as she live streams The Hobbit. Okay, hopefully I'll see some of you at the yard later today. Until then, have a fabulous Tuesday, wrap up warm, look after yourselves, look after those around you, and we'll see you soon.